Welcome, everyone. I'm Eamon, Principal Solutions Engineer at Lob, and we're thrilled you're here for the 2025 State of Direct Mail Consumer Insights. So, this year's data is fresh from over 2,000 US consumers and offers a front row view in how people are actually interacting with mail today and how those behaviors are evolving. So, before we dive in, just a couple of quick housekeeping items. Today's session is being recorded, and we'll be posting the recording on our website afterward. So, feel free to revisit it or share it with your colleagues later on. We're planning to leave some time for questions at the end, so if anything comes to mind during the session, please go ahead and drop your questions into the Q&A panel. And if we don't get to your question today, we'll be sure to follow up with you after the webinar. All right, so before we dive into the research, I'd like to introduce our panelists. First, Kelsey White is the lead at Kelsey White Research Consulting. She's going to give deeper insights into the research and help us connect the dots between the findings and broader trends in direct mail. Secondly, we're happy to have Jordan Greenberg, Partnerships Manager at Lob Client Loan Pro. Jordan manages Loan Pro's direct mail program and is a fintech thought leader and previous startup founder with experience building and scaling innovative businesses. We'll be bringing him in during the panel portion to learn more about Loan Pro's direct mail program and his reaction to the data shared today. So with that, let's kick it off with the biggest takeaways from this year's report. Kelsey will walk us through some of the key data points that every marketer and ops lead should have on their radar. Take it away, Kelsey.
Awesome. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Kelsey, and I'm really excited I get to share this data with you today. This study was a lot of fun, and there's tons of interesting stuff here. So let's go ahead and kick it off with one of the most surprising findings this year. And that is, we found that Gen Z and millennials are the age group leading the charge on direct mail engagement. 85% of these age cohorts are interacting with direct mail. So this includes things like they're sharing it with other people, they're making a purchase as a result of receiving that mail. We see tons of engagement here. And this is higher than any other generation, especially higher than baby boomers, which on its face I found a little bit counterintuitive. What's even more compelling is that for these younger consumers, mail feels worth paying attention to and it inspires them to action. So when we look at conversion, meaning making a purchase or signing up for a service, 67% have converted from direct mail. From an industry lens here, we see that is especially true for financial services mail. But the same trend exists across real estate, healthcare, and automotive mail types. So clearly, this data breaks the myth that print only works for older demographics. The younger audiences are actively bringing direct mail into their decision-making moments. And I wanted to call out that we've seen same-day engagement rise across the board. So this is the proportion of people who read the mail as soon as they get it or within same day of receiving it. That has climbed to 84%, a big jump from just 70% a year ago. So why is this happening? That brings us to our second big highlight, which is, in our world today that's full of pings and push notifications, direct mail stands out precisely because it is different. More than half, 53% of our respondents said mail feels more valuable, special, or exclusive compared to digital channels. And that emotional distinction really matters. It feels more intentional and less like noise. It's more of a gesture, and that makes people slow down and actually absorb the information they're receiving. Multiple people said they like mail because it feels real, which is, a powerful differentiator in today's digital world. And we also had people saying they like mail because it feels like the brand made an effort. And here's where mail really punches above its weight: memory and trust. So 56% of people told us they remember brands better from direct mail than from digital alone. And just under half, 49%, said brands that send direct mail seem more credible than those who they only interact with digitally. And this is especially true in industries like healthcare and financial services, where trust really matters. And interestingly, our affluent, high-income consumers who are more exposed to all types of marketing are the most likely to say that mail makes a brand feel more credible. Of course, all of this impact only works, though, if the message hits home. And so when consumers don't respond well to direct mail, the number one reason is irrelevance. So this brings us to our third big highlight. Um, People are quick to toss anything that doesn't feel useful, timely, or personalized. And that's not just a creative issue in how you kind of design and compile your mail, it's a targeting issue. So just under 3/4 of consumers told us they'll throw out mail that feels irrelevant. And again, if we look at those high income audiences that are particularly likely to convert, on the flip side, they're especially unforgiving of poor targeting. So if your campaign isn't tightly segmented, you're not just missing out on value, but you're straight up burning budget. Let's break down what consumers are rejecting. So many get annoyed if the mail tries to be personalized, but they get it wrong or it feels fake, especially when this is really basic stuff like your name. Nearly half don't like urgency language, like this is the final notice or act now. It feels gimmicky or spammy. And a third say they'll ditch anything that's addressed to current resident. So again, that name, first name matters. Not only does something coming to current resident lack personalization, but it kind of feels like the brand didn't even try and you can sense that you're just part of this, mass produced mailer. So the bottom line here is that consumers are looking for intention behind the mail. They want personalization that's real and offers that are aligned with their interests. Gimmicks and overused tricks are more likely to backfire than convert. And highlight number 4, when mail gets it right, it does in fact move people. So 81% of consumers this year said they've taken action from a piece of direct mail, and that's up dramatically from 60% last year. Consumers respond super well to mail when it's solving a problem that they're dealing with or when it highlights something that's already relevant to them, something that they're already thinking about or needing. And what's interesting is they get the mail, but then the action they take next is usually digital. So people get the mailer, but then they visit a website, they Google your brand, they check out social media and look for reviews. And so that means mail isn't just a tactile experience, but it's a trigger for that multi-channel engagement. Let's talk about what actually drives conversion. So this is what moves people from not just noticing the piece of mail and reading it and maybe even engaging with it, like checking a website, but actually spending money. The top motivator here is a clear offer or discount. Not too surprising. People, love to save money when they're going to spend money. But really close behind that are those signals of relevance that we talked about earlier. So if the mailer is about a product or service that the consumer was already interested in, or if it's from a brand that they are already familiar with. And what's important here is that mail doesn't have to work alone. Again, it's often reinforcing digital familiarity or building on prior brand interactions. And down lower on the list, you'll see the details matter. Design, tone, again, being addressed to the recipient by name, that can nudge someone from being a passive reader of the mail to an active customer. And so, about 2/3 were driven by some sort of personalization element. That's huge. And finally, I've been, kind of mentioning this, but it's not about mail versus digital. It's how the two are working together and mutually supporting each other. So when someone receives a direct mail piece, many are visiting the brand's website, searching for it online, and looking up reviews. That's a really strong bridge into your digital ecosystem. And 41% of consumers say they're more likely to engage with a brand when they receive both direct mail and digital touchpoints. Mail is a momentum driver. It's not just for retention or reactivating dormant customers, it's fueling awareness, discovery, and ultimately conversion, especially when paired with digital channels like email or social media or text messaging. And those are, yeah, the biggest findings that we wanted to lead with.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Kelsey. And yeah, we can move on to the panel discussion. So, as I mentioned earlier, Jordan from Loan Pro will be joining Kelsey and I. We'll ask him to react to what stood out, share what's working or not working in Loan Pro's own programs, and talk through how he's applying this type of data to drive results. So, yeah, Jordan, welcome. Before we dive into some questions, can you tell us a little about Loan Pro, your role, and your direct mail program?
Absolutely. First of all, I just want to say thank you for having me here. It's a real honor to be with you all today. So, yeah, just really glad to be here and share some insights. Hopefully, they're helpful. Loan Pro is a loan management system. What does that mean? It's a pretty broad term. We have over 700 customers. They range from banks to credit unions to financial technology companies to specialty financiers, all of whom use Loan Pro to service their loans, lines of credit, leases, or really any other asset class that you can think of tied to some credit product. Uh, Loan Pro is a really broad system, and we offer a very wide ecosystem of partners to build integrated solutions. And that is the way in which our direct mail program works. It is fully embedded into our program, so all of our customers can take advantage of it in order to have one relationship with Loan Pro through which they can manage and send out all of their direct mail campaigns, so that they're not managing relationships with multiple vendors, whether it's Mailhouse, whether it's SMS, you name it. They come to Loan Pro. They're able to directly interact with their customers through our platform. They have a full audit trail of their mail, open rates, send dates, so forth and so on. They can do customization. They have templates. Really, really fascinating, I think, use case for direct mail here. And yeah, excited to share some of the insights that we've seen through working with a wide range of customers. And hopefully I can answer some questions.
Awesome. Well, cool. Let's start with this because I'm curious. What stat or trend from the report stood out most to you and why?
Yeah, great question. I think we touched on it early in the presentation, but just thinking about the ways in which millennials and Gen Z are interacting with direct mail still or wanting to receive direct mail is really fascinating to me. I fit squarely into the millennial demographic. And I am old enough to remember when email was still not like the primary method of communication. Whether I was like calling my early girlfriends at night on my landline, or rushing out to the mailbox after school to get a piece of mail from my grandmother. Like mail was very integral to my early life, and it still is. Like I used to live in New York. First thing I would do when I would get home would be stop by my mailbox to see, what pieces of mail I had received that day. I'm working in financial services for a long time now. Uh, it's interesting. Like I still depend on mail to get statements to, take any actions that I may have, looked over in my email or, DMs or any other types of digital personas I have today. So I find it more interesting that Gen Z is still actually or is still interacting with direct mail so much, considering I think they're kind of on like the tail end of that transition fully digital. So that stood out to me. But yeah, I don't think from a millennial perspective, I'm too surprised. Like I still look forward to getting things in the mail. It feels like a really nice touch point, and there's some type of emotional uplift you get whenever you go to your mailbox and you see something that's personalized, something that you know stands out from a brand that you're familiar with, or even in my case, maybe a really great credit card offering. So yeah, interesting takeaway
Cool.
there.
Well, yeah, so actually something you touched on in there was generational responses. So yeah, a big takeaway from the report was on the generational differences in how people respond to mail. For Loan Pro specifically, does Loan Pro help their clients target Gen Z or millennial audiences with mail?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and again, we touched on this in the report, but so much of the lives of these folks are online and digital that finding that one important piece of mail in an inbox can be hard. I'm so quick to, click delete, 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 or just forget something, and my inbox might have 23,000 unread messages. So, yeah, I think with direct mail, if a lender specifically needs to deliver some type of compliance related document to a customer in that age demographic, it fits perfectly. Not only are there regulations that make delivering that via direct mail a mandate, but also I think it might be uh, a little bit more familiar. It might be like a way in which lenders can build trust with those key demographics. And it's another way in which, again, they can almost ensure that they're reaching the customers that they support and service. Because at the end of the day, again, spam filters are quick to pick up on mail that they might not recognize in inboxes. Inbox zero is harder and harder to achieve these days, if not entirely impossible. So, that one important mail piece that's sent via email on a daily basis might get lost. And I think mail is a really good way to ensure that it does not. You're continuing to build trust, and we certainly support and service that with the customers that we work with.
Yeah, I absolutely relate to that in terms of yeah, things in email that might not actually ever get in front of my eyeballs. So yeah, an inbox zero, I think, is we can officially say it's impossible. Cool. So yeah, Kelsey, let's pass this to you for the next question. So first of all, thank you for sharing all of those great data points, and that was super awesome. One thing we saw was that there was a big jump in immediate engagement with mail from 70% to 84% this year. So what do you think is driving that behavioral shift?
Yeah. So there's kind of two pieces to this trend. There's the increased engagement with mail overall, and then there's the immediacy component of it, which is so interesting. So as as we saw earlier, people are outright craving stuff that isn't digital. And what you were just talking about, when you think about the volume of emails you receive versus mail, mail is like a little bit more, you can kind of get your arms around it. So it stands out and, it feels more authentic and trustworthy. And so from there, why are people engaging same day? I think a lot of this is just the practicality that if that mailer doesn't break through as soon as someone picks it up from the mailbox, you kind of missed your chance because people are just moving at warp speed through their day and not coming back to stuff that didn't feel relevant right out of the gate. And so that's again, like we see those details like personalization really matter. And so when people get their mail and they notice it, they tend to engage right then and there. And otherwise, you've kind of missed your chance. Somebody said, and I thought this was interesting because it rings true for me as well. Somebody said they like mail versus email because they can just like browse through it quickly. There's no like clicking and friction of like scrolling. It's just you just shuffle it through your hands real quick and save what feels relevant.
Cool. Well, another theme that came up was personalization as both a driver of action and a reason that mail fails. You mentioned if, people are sending generic mail, it doesn't hit. So based on the data, what does good personalization actually mean to customers?
Yeah. So I've mentioned this, I'll mention it again. It has to be specific. It has to have your name. And again, the relevancy piece, maybe it's a brand you're already interested in or a product or service you've been looking for. People also really respond well to things that are tailored to their geographic location or neighborhood. Something like that can really stand out. And kind of a sub theme of all of this is that consistency, which I know Jordan was also mentioning, that for the people who convert, meaning they actually make a purchase from direct mail, 2/3 of these people said direct mail is an important way that brands build relationships with them. So that's, an ongoing relationship. So recognizing a brand from prior direct mail or the digital ads or recommendations, that's really highly correlated with above average conversion likelihood. So personalization is not just kind of the details about the recipient, but also that consistency and repetition and relationship building.
Cool. Yeah, I actually recently got a mail piece for a brand and it didn't mention my name, but it mentioned like my specific neighborhood and it had a picture of my area and I was like, "Wait, what is this? Is this a local company?" And that drew my attention you know, from everything else in the mailbox. So yeah, I like that broader definition of what personalization means. Cool. All right, so Jordan, back to you. So the data shows that consumers respond well to useful, relevant mail, and a lot of operational mail fits into that category. So what kind of operational mail programs are your customers running through your platform right now, and which ones are gaining the most traction?
Yeah, great question. I mean, in terms of operational mail, every lender does have a requirement unless the consumer chooses otherwise to send mail digitally. And those are disclosures and other compliance related documents. So we're going to see tons of volume, related to compliance in financial services, highly regulated industries. That's never going to change unless, again, a consumer explicitly requests to have that done digitally, which, definitely can get lost in kind of that sign up flow. And maybe even, the customer wants to receive the mail. One thing that we've seen done really well here and something that's gaining traction is some of our customers electing to do big welcome packages. So, those initial disclosure documents might be included in this package. There might be info about making payments, contact info in case that customer needs to, reach a customer service representative, um, and so forth and so on. I think that those are really like great ways to, personalize the direct mail and, start building that trust and that relationship really early on, again, from the moment that they become a actual customer. And so we've seen that become quite sticky and we're seeing that catch on, kind of across the board with all of those, financial services companies that we work with these days.
Cool. Awesome. I think next one is for you, Kelsey. So the report talks about direct mail being a gateway to digital. So did you see any patterns in how people moved from mail to online engagement?
Yeah, definitely. So we had that slide earlier showing that, people often the first step they take after the mail is digital. And also, we mentioned people often think of mail as good for reactivation or re-engagement, but it's also really amazing for awareness building, especially because it has that credibility piece, that it can signal with your brand. And so, when people get mail from a brand, especially when they don't already know, they're then moving online to get more often, to get more info. So often one of those first things is looking for reviews to kind of vet, is this credible? And something else, we saw growing interest in QR codes and strong willingness to scan a QR code on mail pieces because it just removes that tiny friction of searching for the brand yourself. The first action or the most common action people take is try to find the brand's website. So if you
Yeah.
include a QR code that already has that and you can just scan it, that's, a little bit easier than maybe fumbling with your phone thumbs to try to type it into a browser or something. Um, and one other thing I want to mention here is that almost half of consumers that we talked to said if they're going to be contacted by a brand they don't already know or have a relationship with, direct mail actually feels less invasive than digital outreach. So again, just really clear signals that it's great for building awareness and kind of helping people then move digitally into your digital ecosystem.
Cool. Yeah, I think also with those QR codes, they're great for tracking attribution. So absolutely recommend making it easy for you to take your customers or your prospects from those mail pieces to the digital experience. Cool. All right, Jordan, back to you. So another Loan Pro question. What channels do Loan Pro clients pair with direct mail most often? And then how does direct mail live as part of their omni-channel strategy along with, the other channels they're using to reach folks?
Yeah, great question. So again, LoanPro does have a large ecosystem of solutions that we allow our customers to integrate into, their instance of LoanPro. I would say aside from direct mail, which a large percentage of our customers elect to use
Hmm.
through our integration, the most common other forms or channels that we see across the board are probably email and SMS. Um, and there are different ways in which they're used. You can imagine that um, SMS might be used in the instance where a customer gets a receipt or they get some type of notification about a past due, uh, payment. Even a link to make a payment is something that we see a lot of our customers sending to their end customers. Um, and I think that those all fit in generally to the same type of flow. And there are automations, through our integration that can determine which channel a piece of communication goes out through. So again, for example, when a customer signs up for a credit card or a new lending product, there's some type of disclosure that needs to go out in order to fill a regulatory requirement. Uh,
Hmm.
that might be sent out via direct email. If the consumer elects to have that sent digitally, it might be sent via email. And there might even be links, prior to actually um, signing up for that loan or that credit card where a customer gets sent a link for a step that they need to take in an application process as well. So I would say that like these channels all fit really strongly in together. They're controlled via automations with our partnership and integration with LOB.
Hmm.
And it really does uh, bring a ton of value to our end customers. So much so, and I'll give an example of a customer we're really excited about, but they are a bank. They're a subsidiary of a parent company, which actually owns its own mailhouse provider. And they've recently come to LoanPro and used our integration uh, because of everything that we've touched on kind of in this conversation, even though they're actually paying more, right? They've got the ability to, track a piece of mail from kind of the origin through, the time it's received. They're, kind of consolidating all of their vendors into one ecosystem where they come to LoanPro, they know that they've got automation set up so that, there is no regulatory requirements missed. All of that mail is going out when it needs to. They're building trust with their end customers, um, and that will allow them to service them even better at the end of the day. So we're really excited about the growth that we're seeing with our partnership here with LOB. We're really excited about the ways in which we're rethinking direct mail and building kind of an embedded system for, not only being able to deliver personalized campaigns, but, campaigns that are automated, that reach their end consumer, that bring delight, um, and that are helping even millennials like me or Gen Z go home and get excited about receiving, statements. Never thought I'd say that.
Yeah, I mean, I I feel the same way. Maybe I'm a little, well, generally biased, maybe as a lab employee, but something that you just said that I really like as well is seeing that, you know, I think a few questions in the chat have asked us about lob differentiators and what makes lob unique. And I think like being able to partner with someone like LoanPro, where you have these sophisticated automations set up and you have this great logic in place to be able to use that to power automation and personalization and direct mail and have that flow as part of this bigger picture and have the right messages reach the right people, not only at the right time, but through the right channel. It's cool to hear that your customers are happy with kind of, that value prop is resonating with them. So very cool to hear that. Um, awesome. So yeah, I think we can go to the general Q&A here, but I think one more question for you, Jordan, first. Just generally speaking, what's one piece of advice you'd give to marketers building out a direct mail program?
Oh gosh. I mean, in looking at the data, I think it's that direct mail programs work, right? We're seeing that there's still super high levels of engagement with messaging that is being received physically. And there is a need now more than ever, according to the data, to rethink your strategy there, rethink how you're personalizing your outreach via direct mail. Maybe shift more budget away from, email campaigns to digital mail. And I would definitely encourage everyone to start thinking about automations. Again, it's really working for us. Our end users truly love it and find a ton of value in it. And it just brings so much operational efficiency that I think it's something that's really worth investigating, looking into. And, the Lob team is far and away prepared to answer any questions and help build those campaigns. They certainly have with us.
Cool. Awesome. Well, we love to hear it. All right. So let's start with some of the questions coming in from the audience. So this one says, in reference to slide 8, for stats by age groups, are we talking B2C, B2B, or both? B2C influencer marketing could drastically increase the engagement with B2C, in my opinion. Kelsey, I wonder, maybe this is one I can start with you.
Yeah, yes, for sure. I love this question, and I actually pulled up my spreadsheet of data because I want to tell you exactly the answer. Because we did ask about, the impact of influencer endorsements or photos on direct mail pieces. And so this was in our question where we asked what, prompts people to take action. And absolutely, Gen Z and millennials score highly on that. So 17% of Gen Z and 15% of millennials said that influencer endorsement or photo on the piece of direct mail is part of what prompts them to take action. And this is much higher than Gen X and boomers. Boomers, it was 2%. So like not a factor for them. And what's interesting here too, that I was just looking at is that influencer endorsement is on par with the neighborhood or city local details that I mentioned earlier. So for those age groups, it is definitely really powerful.
Very cool. Awesome. So then I think another one is coming your way, Kelsey. So an earlier slide mentioned 50% of people will not take action if it sounds urgent or pushy, but then 52% say discounts inspire action. So when offering a discount, should the brand include the expiration date, or is that too pushy? And I have some anecdotal thoughts on this too, but I'll see what you think first, Kelsey.
Yeah, no, that's great to point out. And this is another place where, it's like do it, but do it right. So I believe that including an expiration date is relevant, helpful info related to the offer or discount. So to me, that's not pushy. I think what people find pushy is, or what turns them off is when it's like the big red blurb that's like final notice and it takes up like a third of your real estate on the piece of paper. But if you're emphasizing the discount or the offer, and then by the way, it's like, oh, this expires on the 25th, that's fine. People are going to find that helpful and relevant.
Cool. Yeah, and I guess Jordan, from your customer's perspective, is there anything you can think about with guidance you give them on messaging and how to drive action without turning people off? Oh, you're on mute.
Tough question. I would say that I'm not specifically involved in providing guidance to our end
Yeah.
customers with how they should structure their direct campaigns. We certainly give them all of the tools, and
Hmm.
we can provide some type of maybe strategic input. But I think Kelsey's touched on it. Like, you never want to sound too pushy, especially with the financial services industry that involves people taking actions involving money. That can
Hmm.
be a real turnoff, and it can be a loss of trust with that brand. So I think at the end of the day, like, lenders, people providing credit need to be very careful, and just measured with the ways in which they are talking to their end customers.
Hmm.
Because, again, it's a highly regulated industry. There's probably things that you want to avoid
Hmm.
saying, so that you don't come up against any regulatory actions. Like, I know that
Yeah.
everyone at banks and financial services companies employ lots of folks, both in legal departments and compliance related departments, in order to arrive at uh, compliant types of messaging. And so this is definitely something that gets thought about a lot, because once you get a consumer in, you want to keep them in. And big brands are very good at doing that. And direct mail is definitely used in order to provide upsells and other like cross-sell opportunities. But I think at the end of the day, it has to be very, very measured, well thought out, highly personalized, and it can't be too pushy. I think that
Yeah.
just as like a consumer in the financial services space, like we see, great examples of Chase or American Express, offering opportunities to, get cash back on a new card, or, even move over to like a CD with a specific amount
Hmm.
of money so that you can earn, a couple $100 if you leave, 15 grand in an account for 90 days. Um, and all that's really well thought out. Definitely not super pushy. Um, I hope that provides some clarity.
Yeah, yeah, and exactly. And it's not pushy, and it's going back to our earlier points, it's relevant, right? Like those are things that it's it makes the people see those offers and it makes sense to them. I think it's something they're excited to participate in, not something that they feel like that's being pushed on them. So yeah, very cool.
Yeah, it feels value driven, right?
Yes,
And I think that that's like the messaging that we want to get across, is like, how can you provide value? And that's typically where we see like a high response rate.
cool. All right, next question. I'll start with you, Kelsey. But the question is, should direct mail lead or follow after should direct mail lead or follow after a digital campaign?
Oh man. I mean, I don't know that I have the answer there. I think that comes down to your brand, your relationship. I think it can really be either, because we definitely see that, you know, people are more likely to engage with direct mail when they already know the brand in some way. Maybe a friend or family member recommended it. So, or maybe they saw a digital ad. So it definitely can flow that direction, that if you've already done something digitally, it makes people more likely to receive the direct mail and be like, oh, yeah, I recognize this brand. But also, we know it's great for awareness building. And,
Right.
if people start receiving direct mail, the brand feels very credible. Any weird random person can buy a digital ad, right? And so, like when you receive the mail, right off the bat, you're like, oh, this is credible, this brand, and you can start building that way. So I really think it can go either direction.
Yeah, I think anecdotally, I've seen for brand introductions, using direct mail as a way to break through and then following it with digital is a way to, like, if you get an email or you see a digital ad, you're more likely to glaze past it. So if you're really trying to introduce your brand, somebody picking up a piece of mail and looking at it is that's probably going to stick with them, and then digital following will have some, you know, there'll be some relationship already because there'll at least be some recognition. Um, but yeah, I know it's wishy-washy, but to Kelsey's point, it really does depend on your brand, where you are in your relationship with that customer. Um, I People advocate for both things. But also, when you're running direct mail as part of a omni-channel strategy, it essentially functions like a digital channel. And as part of that, there's a lot of the testing and learning that you can do. So if you think about, like, different people in your audience are going to respond to different channels more, and capturing those learnings and understanding, you know, this set of customers is more likely to follow up on an SMS. This set of customers, we sent them direct mail, they were engaged. When we started emailing and texting them, and they totally disengaged. We want to hit them with more direct mail. So lots of times where it fits in that customer journey too is also going to be based on your learnings, not just for your audience as a whole, but any kind of understanding you have of the individuals that you're sending mail to, and what they're responding to. So it'll also probably change over time. Cool. So next question here. How do you measure open rates on direct mail? I have a few thoughts. First and foremost, you can just follow it to people's houses and watch them pick it up. No, just kidding. Um, we're not sitting in people's dining rooms as they open their direct mail pieces, but some things that I've seen customers do. One, using QR codes, and specifically using personalized QR codes. If you send a unique QR code on a mail piece and that mail piece gets scanned, that's one-to-one tracking. I know that Kelsey scanned her mail piece because that's a unique QR code on her piece. That's like knowing if somebody clicked in an email, right? We have that one-to-one level of tracking. But we know that not everybody's scanning QR codes. Some people are going to like receive a mail piece and then just pull up their laptop and Google the brand. There are ways you can look at that. If you're tracking your mail and you know exactly when mail pieces land, you can then say, okay, when is my first like digital touch with this customer? If you first see somebody on your page and it's the day they received the mail piece or the day after they received the mail piece, you might give some weight to that direct mail experience, right? And vice versa, if you have delivery time data, then you can also remove false positives, right? So you can get a lot more specific of understanding when people are responding to direct mail pieces. Pearls are another good practice, right? Like a shortened URL that ties back to a direct mail campaign. Because again, if they use that short URL, easy to turn around. Hopefully easier to just turn and type that than Google your brand. Then that way you're getting that direct callback to direct mail, and you know that it came from that directly. And then there's actually a follow-up question here that I think ties to this one. It says, what's the best way to track or match back QR scanners with our CRM database? So if you're doing one-to-one QR scans, then we know who's scanning their mail piece. That's great because you can tie that back to, in your CRM, which individual is taking that action. With Lob, at least, you can attach metadata to every mail piece you send. So if you're attaching information to your mail piece, like an email address or a unique identifier, maybe their ID within your CRM, something like that, and then you start to get tracking events back on that direct mail piece saying this mail piece has been mailed, this mail piece has been delivered, this mail piece has had the QR code scanned. That unique identifier can come back into your system on those tracking events. So you're starting to build automations and you're listening for these tracking events. Applying that metadata can pull that data, can pull those tracking events right back into your CRM and associate those with the correct user. Or again, to answer a question, that other question from earlier about like what are Lob's differentiators, I think thinking about direct mail more like a digital channel is kind of the high level overview of what Lob is doing. And so automating not only the sending of your mail, right? Being able to send a triggered mail piece when somebody takes an action, being able to automate the process of listening for that, firing off a one-off mail piece that's personalized to them with HTML creative that gives you the same level of personalization that you get in email, then tracking that mail piece all the way through until it gets delivered and tying all those tracking events again back to that individual. Really changes mail from sort of sending it, it disappears into the ether for a little bit, and then you do a match back after people start converting and making purchases. It takes it from that world into a world where you have real specific visibility into where your mail is and some of the actions that people are taking off of it. Cool. So let's see. Enough of me talking. Let's go back to a question for Kelsey. Did the research track the device that people use to follow up on a direct mail piece? Was it like mobile, laptop, etc.?
We don't know, unfortunately. So we didn't ask that granularly, if they're searching the brand on a computer or a mobile device. We don't know. What we do know is most people were completing our survey from a mobile device.
Hmm.
And so I think too often if people are picking up mail from a mailbox and kind of looking at it while they're walking, it seems reasonable to assume that a lot of that is happening on mobile, especially since we see such high levels of immediate engagement with mail. But I don't know we don't have that in our data.
Okay. Um, let's see. I guess another one for you, Kelsey. Um, Automotive being a category seeing positive high engagement with direct mail. Is this specific to dealership campaigns or more mechanic maintenance focused? There's a wide gap in purchase value between the two, which is an important consideration when evaluating the data from a retailer perspective.
Yes. So here too, I don't have like a unequivocal answer, but a few clues in our data. So first of all, I'm not an automotive expert, so I don't necessarily know the nuance between like a dealership campaign versus maintenance or whatever. But what we do have in our data is we asked people, what they like receiving from automotive brands or what they engage with. And promotions and discounts are high. It was promotions or discounts on service or accessories, service and maintenance reminders, exclusive offers for current customers or loyalty program members. Also, personalized messages from your dealership or service center ranked high. So I don't know if that's helpful for you. To me, it looks like there's quite a bit of overlap there of like, is the dealership the one offering service? But hopefully that's a little bit helpful. It's the same themes as other mail types. People like offers and discounts. People like the relevancy and the personalization of a timely reminder. So that's a few more details there. Hopefully helpful.
Yeah, that actually, I think that makes for a nice segue back to the report because one thing to call out is that in the report, we actually have four industry specific reports, rolled up into the full report. So, automotive, real estate, financial services, and healthcare. And I think a couple people have asked in the chat, are you guys going to get a copy of the report? And the answer is yes. So actually, if we can go back to the slides, you will all see in just a moment. Cool. Um, I'll talk through it, but go ahead and start scanning that QR code. So thank you everybody for the great questions. And yeah, we're gonna come to the end of this presentation today, wrap a little bit early, but I want to wrap it up with some actionable steps to take based on the data. So first, it became very clear to us that younger generations are critical to your strategy. Millennials and Gen Z are highly responsive to direct mail, but the key is to meet their expectations. So, what that means is prioritizing timing and relevance over volume. This audience doesn't want a stack of generic offers. They want something that feels like it was actually meant for them and delivered at the right moment. We also learned that it's smart to think of direct mail as a gateway to digital. So these consumers live online. So integrating QR codes, personalized URLs, or even SMS handoffs gives them a seamless path from physical to digital and helps you track engagement as well. And then finally, personalization needs to go deeper than just, Dear John. Think about what you're offering, how it's formatted, and the message itself. Younger audiences expect real, tailored content, and with the right data and segmentation, and mail can absolutely deliver that. And then as part of your attendance today, we're thrilled to give you exclusive access to the report before it goes live tomorrow. So a whole day early. Congratulations, everybody. And you can see that here. So go ahead and scan that QR code. That's going to take you to the page to download the report. And yeah, as I mentioned before, you're going to see it has some sector specific breakouts and lots of other cool stuff in there. So very exciting. And then yeah, a little bit of news to share as well. So as you may have seen, there's big changes coming to USPS pricing. and they're going to affect every marketer who relies on direct mail. So this is the new zone-based pricing model that the USPS is moving to, and this is going to move away from flat origin rates and instead it will charge based on how far your mail has to travel. That means your cost structure could shift dramatically depending on where and how you send. So at Lob, fortunately, we're already ahead of this because our national print delivery network and intelligent routing capabilities are built for geographic optimization. So whether it's dropping closer to the destination or dynamically selecting the most cost-efficient entry point, we help you stay efficient, responsive, and ready for what's next. So hopefully you'll be able to join us for our upcoming webinar to break it all down. It's going to talk through what zone-based pricing actually means, how it's changing the industry, and why a tech-forward approach to mail logistics is more important than ever. So again, thank you everybody so much for joining today. Thank you so much, Kelsey and Jordan, for your joining us on the panel. And we hope it was as helpful to you guys as we hope it was helpful to you guys as you continue to evolve your direct mail programs in 2025. And have a great day, everybody. Thank you.